You've just joined the Prepper Broadcasting Network, where we promote self-reliance and independence. The views and opinions expressed are strictly those of the host or their guests. Visit us in the interactive chat room at prepperbroadcasting.com.
Bankland, Federation of Bankland, the Republic of Bankland, United States of Bankland, United Kingdom of Bankland. Parasite, a smart parasite, a real smart parasite, keeps its host alive. Times are bad and times are hard, and minus cash, my way is barred and treated like some retard strapped to a suicide credit card. Mr. Banker, can't you see?
Welcome, Galtstrikers. This is our weekly libertarian talk show where we discuss not only the problems of today but also solutions. If you have questions or comments during tonight's broadcast, the call-in number to get on the air is 1-347-202-0228. After you connected, remember to press 1 so that our producer will see you want to be on the air. If you're listening on this show, over on Blog Talk or any other website that carries our player, you can also listen and join us in our chat room at prepperbroadcasting.com. When you're on the prepperbroadcasting.com, about midway down the page, you'll see the player, and you'll see the chat room right below that, and just enter your username and click connect. So anyways, I said we are a libertarian talk show. We discuss the problems and also the solutions. And lately we've been talking about careers and job opportunities and different ways to advance in life as one of those solutions. And so we've been bringing on different professionals from different industries to talk about how they got started and what they did. If you received the email that I sent out, we're going to be talking about a couple of friends of mine who are in the medical industry. We have a doctor and a nurse, Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy. You may be familiar with them from the website doomandbloom.net. Thank you for being on the air, Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing great, Tom.
Awesome, Tom.
How's it going?
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. So you guys have done quite a few things in your career. Dr. Bones, you're a doctor, and Nurse Amy, you're a nurse, and you've had your medical careers that you've been successful in. You guys have also written the book, the Survival Medicine Handbook. You've got a successful website, and the other cool thing that I'd like to talk about also in this show is you developed your own board game.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So let's talk about some of these things. And the listeners out there, if any of you are interested in the medical field, now's your chance to call and talk to people that have done it and have been successful at it. I'll remind you of that phone number is 1-347-202-0228. So let's start with Dr. Bones. Dr. Bones, could you tell us a little bit about what it takes to become a doctor and tell our listeners how you got started and how you got interested in your profession?
Well, I was really, in college, I would say I was a lost soul. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I looked around and I got this feeling that I should be doing something that should be helping people. At the time, I was a psychology and a political science major. I was heading on a track to go to law school. Matter of fact, I got accepted to the University of Florida Law School, and I decided that it made more sense for me, if I was really going to dedicate my life to helping people, to probably do something else with my life other than be a lawyer. And so I really felt that being a doctor would be a great opportunity for me to save lives and do other things that I think would really help people. And so I applied to medical school. I had just some of the basic science courses, and by a miracle, I was accepted over at the University of Miami Medical School. And so I wound up going there. I had my socks in my hand, putting them in my suitcase to go to the law school at the University of Florida, because I hadn't heard from the medical school. When I actually got my acceptance in the mail, my mother came. I remember my mother came running in with the letter, and so that's just sort of the way it happened. And I've been honored to and blessed to be a popular surgeon and obstetrician in my area for 25 years, and now we've retired and we do our thing for medical preparedness, and that's become a mission for us too. The mission is right. The mission is to put a medically prepared person in every family.
Well, you know what, Tom, I just want to prompt him to say one more thing. I think it's important with people who are starting businesses. I mean, you graduated medical school and you had a choice. You had a choice to go work for someone else or to work for yourself.
Yes.
Why don't you tell them what you did and how you survived it? Really?
Right. Yeah. The normal track for a young doctor is to be a junior partner in a big medical practice. And I was really sort of a maverick, and I decided to just put out my own shingle, which was something that was very uncommon back then. And so I had to, you may not believe this, but I was within beeper range for 3.5 years. And in my field, you had, I started off as an obstetrician, and in my field, you had to be in town and you had to deliver your own patients. Couldn't have somebody take call for you at night. And so I'll tell you, during the day I was in the office, and more likely than not at 4 a.m. or 3 a.m. in the morning, I was in the hospital. So if you're going to be a doctor or if you're going to be an obstetrician, it pays to not sleep too much.
Yeah, so we had a show a few weeks ago discussing work ethic. So I'm assuming to be a doctor, you have to have top-notch work ethic.
Well, I got to tell you that there were a lot of circumstances where we were so driven to do work that we accepted pretty crazy schedules. I remember showing up with another resident to the emergency room at Jackson Memorial Hospital, which, if anybody knows South Florida, is the big county hospital down in Miami-Dade County.
Yeah, but it was really crazy in the early 80s.
Right.
Really nuts.
Right. And, of course, they had Mariel. The Mariel boat lift was there, and all those refugees were there as well. And me and this other resident showed up at the emergency room, and the guys that were coming off of the emergency room rotation said, okay, it's you and him, and that's it. So split up the schedule however you want it. That means that I was there 12 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and then 24 hours in a row, either Saturday or Sunday. So there were some circumstances that I would be on Friday night starting at about 6, and I wouldn't get off until Sunday morning. So you really have to have an incredible work ethic if you're going to work at a big county hospital. I mean, you can pick a smaller hospital, but you know what? I needed to see everything. I want to see everything possible, and the volume of patients I saw, there was so much that during my career I never saw anything that surprised me. In other words, that I felt that I couldn't handle. So it was an awesome education, and it probably took 10 years off my life.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
But I survived.
So, for someone who's interested in going to medical school, let's say they, had the good grades to get accepted, but they just can't afford the cost of tuition and the books and all of that. What ideas and solutions would they have to come up with the money? Because the other thing we talk about is student debt, and some people that's too big of a cookie for them to swallow, to have that big of a debt. So what are some ideas that people could do to acquire the funding to go to medical school?
Well, what I did is I signed up for something called the Public Health Service, which provided physicians to prisons, state prisons, and state clinics and things like that, and they helped me with my tuition, and also I worked other clinics that were in the area, private clinics that allowed me to do it. So there are employment opportunities, or in other words, second job opportunities. So unfortunately, sometimes, like when I was in the ER, the schedule's too much to be able to do those, but you could certainly supplement your income doing that. So, and don't forget that you can take out loans. And I'll tell you, with the way things are maybe looking, if we don't watch out, we're going to have an administration in 2017 that's going to forgive a lot of these loans. So maybe that would be good for students that are going to medical school or considering it.
You know what I think? I think if they're going to do that, they should at least pick majors. If someone's going to become a doctor or someone's going to become a nurse or something that our community needs or our country needs, we're desperate for a certain type of major that we could help them. I mean, I think we should look at not necessarily forgiving an art major's debt at Harvard, but maybe forgiving someone who went to a state school
and is
to become a doctor.
Right, and is willing to maybe provide some service after graduation.
Right,
and
some
that's
community
what the
service.
Right, that's what the public health service was, and those opportunities are still there. As a matter of fact, one good way of getting into medical school, if you have college students that are considering it, is to let the people know that you're interested in primary care. There is an extraordinary shortage of primary care doctors in the nation today, as a matter of fact, and we really need people that are going to be the first point of contact.
Oh yeah.
For patients. There are a lot of doctors want to become specialists. I ended up becoming a specialist, of course, many years ago. There wasn't any particular shortage of primary care docs, but now it is actually very difficult. There are a lot of areas of the country that are basically doctor deserts, in essence, in that they just don't have enough doctors to fill the need. As a matter of fact, I just want to say this, that's one way that people come into the country as medical professionals, and there's a program called MAVNI that the Department of Defense is part of, in which they have foreign doctors that are willing to spend a period of time treating our men and women in uniform, that they offer a path to citizenship in 3 months.
Wow.
So, that's how bad it is. And
wow. I didn't realize there was that big of a shortage.
Oh yeah.
Well, what about nursing, Amy? What about if someone wants to be in the medical field and they want to help people? Nursing seems to be a really good career as well. Could you give us your perspective on becoming a nurse?
Absolutely. I had the choice like everyone else. What are you going to do? And, I really did have the grades. I had nearly straight A's in high school. I got into the nursing school that I wanted to, which was a private Catholic school, very hard one to get into. They were probably one of the hardest schools to get into. So good grades are very important. If you don't have the good grades, nowadays they're at least taking into consideration the essays that you write. So they really want to see what kind of person you are, what dedication, commitment, what kind of things have you done to help other people during your lifetime so far.
Well-rounded people.
Exactly. So it doesn't always have to be, the perfect straight A student. Passion is very important when you're having your interview for the school. They want to see that this is what you really, really want to do. Now, I picked nursing. I could have become a doctor several times during my first couple of years in nursing school. I almost went over to pre-med. The reason I did not was, one, I really wanted the flexibility to have more time with my family. It was very important for me to have a family. My mom had passed away literally, and this is an absolute truth, 8 hours before I started my first class at college. My first day. And my mother was the one who was sick, and she really wanted me to be a nurse. So I was kind of committed to being a nurse. I wanted to have family. I only had a brother and a father at that point. So it was important for me to be able to give my children time. And I knew the hours, and like Dr. Bones had talked about, the 24-hour shifts, the always being gone. You have more flexibility as a nurse. A lot of times it's shift work, and that's what I started off doing after nursing school. Pick the best nursing school you can. Go where you can get scholarships. Again, scholarships are not always based on just grades. There are other ways to get scholarships. I did get quite a few from various community groups, which was wonderful to help. I eventually ended up having to take some loans for school, which I paid back. They're low interest. And after I started working, I wanted a little more independence. And so the way to get that when you graduate from a bachelor's degree is to go back to school and become a nurse practitioner. And I had started my OB rotation in my bachelor's and loved it. In fact, Dr. Bones and I have talked many times, and he was actually a guest lecturer at my nursing school when I was in school in 1980.
Oh, don't tell him. Don't tell him.
Oh, wow.
1986, spring of 86. He was a
adjunct professor.
Professor.
Yeah, right.
And I remember a doctor coming in during my OB rotation and talking about, during one of our classes about that. And it ends up being him. That's really funny. We didn't actually meet each other for several years later. But him talking and going through my rotation really got me interested in labor and delivery. I was a labor and delivery nurse, and then I saw that there were nurse midwives, and I thought, well, that's really cool. I really want to do that. So University of Miami had a program. I don't think they have the program anymore. There are not too many of them here. But it was a combination nurse practitioner and also certified nurse midwife. It was a little bit longer, but it's what I wanted to do. And when you become a nurse practitioner, you have more independency. So you can write prescriptions. When I was practicing in the office, I would see the patient. I would be able to diagnose and treat.
You could write prescriptions?
I was able to write prescriptions, and my patients did not need to see the doctor unless I felt it was necessary. So there were certain things that I said, listen, you need to see the doctor, and I'll go get him, or I'll put you in a room, and then you can see one of them. And but you don't have to. And when patients were going to deliver, and either I was on call or they requested me, I would go in, and there would be no doctor there. I was in charge. And so it gives you that freedom to be more independent, have more responsibility, feel like you're contributing more and more autonomy, but still have a schedule that is a little more flexible for your family. And I did have young kids when I was in school. I actually had one that was young, and then I had another one in the middle of school, which is hard. But the master's degree was very good in Florida because they really wanted nurse practitioners. They actually subsidized most of my school, but because I couldn't work, and I had 2 small children, I actually had to take loans out to pay my bills because I actually needed a roof over my head and food on the table, and so I had quite the load of loans, and I'm looking at what they're thinking about doing, and gee, I really could have used some forgiven back then.
Yeah. I just want to say that Amy and I and some other midwives were one of the first doctor-midwife combinations. I mean, there was this thing where some doctors didn't like midwives, and I was really against that. I really felt that midwives really provided a service for their patients. They had such good relationships, too, with their patients. And so we were one of the first practices to actually mix the two disciplines. And I have to say...
And you were very respectful.
I have to say that nursing is an awesome career. That there's so much more that you can do in nursing these days. And, you know, anyone that's considering a career in nursing, I highly recommend it. There's a lot of freedom and you get a lot of responsibility, certainly, but you also have much more freedom to treat your patients, you know, than nurses did maybe some time ago.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, we're interested in that because my wife, she's Filipino, and she took 2 years of nursing in the Philippines. And I don't know how those credits will transfer over here, but if I'm not mistaken, I think it'd be pretty easy for her to get into starting out as a CNA.
Oh, yes, I want to tell you that we had a number. I just want to say that we had a lot of Filipino nurses where we were, and they were awesome. So I very much encourage
the education definitely transfers.
Yeah, definitely encourage your wife to do that.
So yeah, and she wants to continue her education here, eventually become an RN. So I'm supporting her on that career choice and going to help her with the college and the tuition and helping her apply for the scholarships. And she has a place to stay while she's going to school. So that's a career choice that she chose, and I'm supporting her on that. But we were looking at this interesting question popped in my head when I was looking at all the various degrees that a nurse can have. I mean, all the way you can get even a doctorate's degree in nursing. So if you get a doctorate's degree as a nurse, does that mean you're a doctor?
No,
yes.
no.
Well, they call you. But wait. Before you do that, yes, they will call you doctor.
It would be lovely if that was actually.
You're not a medical doctor, but I always remembered when I think it was in first or second grade, we had a principal, and I think he had a doctorate's degree in education or something. And he made us all call him doctor.
Yes.
Doctor, whatever his last name was.
Tom,
that's the first time I.
Well, doctorates are actually pretty difficult to get. It could take anywhere from 3 to 5 years after your master's degree. So we're talking about 4 years of bachelor's degree, 2 to 3 years of a master's degree, and then another 3 to 5 years, depending on your program, to become a doctorate. So it's very difficult. So people who get the doctorate, you know what, they deserve to be called that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, you know. But then you get the, you know, because you can be a doctorate of English. I knew somebody who was getting a doctorate's degree in that, and they're you're going to be able to call me doctor now, and so I could see the confusion where the confusion would arise especially in the medical profession. You know, if you're a nurse and you've got the doctor's degree, well, you've got the doctor's degree, but can't call me doctor because we got the doctors around us here.
Well, I'll tell you what's happening now is there is a lot of politics in medicine when it comes to exactly what you're talking about. And if you're a professor in a university and you're nursing, but you have a doctorate, you can be called doctor. But in the hospital, the doctors across this country are fighting to not allow nurses who get a doctorate degree to have to be allowed to be called Dr. Alton. If I got a doctorate and I was working in a hospital, and let's say I was still delivering babies or whatever I was doing in the hospital, the administration is going to tell me that I'm not allowed to use that title.
Oh,
so
boy.
there is
Wow.
that coming down. They're now also telling nurse practitioners that your additional 2 or 3 years after your 4-year bachelor's degree, you've got your master's degree, is now soon not going to be enough to be a nurse practitioner. And they're going to demand, this is all coming from the doctors, mind you, not my husband, but from the doctors generally, going to demand that nurses now have a doctorate degree to become a nurse practitioner, but not allowed to use the title
All right, that's
doctor.
ridiculous.
I know, but it's the truth.
That-
It is
no, I'm not
ridiculous.
saying
And
it's-
my husband is
I'm not-
100% supportive, but this is what's coming down the pipe, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting topic to learn about, and something I never
Yeah.
knew about. So what is the highest degree that a nurse can achieve?
Well, yeah, the doctorate. That's it.
That's the highest?
That's as high as yeah. You can get a couple different doctorates.
Yeah.
But, once you've got the doctorate, you know, there's no other title, there's no higher education in anything.
Most
So-
nurses
go ahead.
wind up. Most nurses are reach the pinnacle of their profession, even with just a master's. For example, a certified nurse anesthetist, that's a master's degree,
Yes,
right?
it is.
And a certified nurse midwife, that's a master's degree.
Yes, it is.
So you can get very high in your profession with just a master's.
Until they change the rules, which are coming down the pipe.
Wow. So, but you get up that high, you've got a lot of career choices open up to you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you think about a nurse anesthetist, we're not going to have fewer operations in the world. As the population ages, especially in America, there's just going to be more and more surgeries, more knee replacements, more hip replacements, more heart surgery. I mean, they come up with new surgeries all the time. So they're able to replace more and more organs these days as they're growing them.
So then I got another question too. So let's say someone is interested, maybe their life dream is to one day become a doctor, but for whatever reason they don't have the time commitment. Maybe they got kids. Maybe it's the cost of tuition to go to medical school. Would it be a good and wise path for them to start out maybe as a nurse and later on in life change their major to become a doctor? Is that a good path to go that way?
You know what? I'm going to say no, because your credits as a nurse are not going to be acknowledged in medical school. So you're wasting your time. If you're going to do it, do it. Now, if for some reason you were a nurse and suddenly changed your mind and wanted to become a doctor, you have got to go back to your bachelor's degree. Let's say you even have a master's degree. You have to go back to your bachelor's degree. You have to take more sciences, more classes to get into medical school. So you've got to start taking those classes, because there's a certain list that's required for medical school that are not required to graduate as a bachelor's degree and become an RN. They're not the same sciences that I needed to take to get into my master's degree. So you're going to have to go way back. You don't have to go back to high school, but you're going to have to go back to your bachelor's degree, and it's almost like starting over. So if you're going to pick that path, the best way is just do it. Just get it over with, because the older you get, the more responsibilities you have, the more bills you have, the more children you have, the harder it becomes. There's more roadblocks, and let me tell you, the suffering and the misery that I went through to get my master's degree, I cannot describe to you. It was so hard. So just do it as soon as possible, and get it done. Get her done.
And then the other question I have, this would probably be an equally difficult path. I don't know. As far as paying for your school, does, like for example, my wife took 2 years of college, 2 years of university in the Philippines, and the cost of that is so cheap that, someone here working minimum wage could pay that cost of that college education that she got. And so I'm wondering, is it possible for an American citizen to get their education in another country where the costs are much, much lower, then come back to the United States and use those credits here?
Yes, absolutely.
And we have examples of this. Go ahead, honey.
Well, we have there were a lot of doctors that were in the hospitals that I worked that came from other countries. You still have to take a special foreign medical graduate exam, number one, to show competence, but also to show that you can communicate in the language. It's hard to be a doctor without being able to talk to the patient. So in this circumstance.
But you also had friends that left from here and went to medical schools in other countries.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Well,
yes, that's what I'm saying. You can go to school in Mexico. They have
as
school
an American citizen.
As an American citizen, you can go to Grenada, has a medical school,
right.
And a lot of these people come right back to the United States, pass their test, and they can apply for residencies and internships in the U.S. And
so
you could also.
So what I was saying, that might be an viable economic solution, especially for somebody who's bilingual, to get their education in another country. If they can't afford it. Because the thought came to mind. People talk about medical tourism, going to another country where the medical costs are much lower. Like, for example, the Philippines. That's where I got my dental work. It was in the Philippines because it was really, really cheap, really affordable. But then I got thinking, well, is there such thing as educational tourism where you can go there and get your education, then come back?
You definitely can. I can't tell you how much it costs to do that, but because obviously it's so many years since I was a medical student, I can't really tell you. But there are I'll tell you, if you look at the wall of your doctor's office, don't be surprised if you see a medical diploma from places like Grenada or Guadalajara or places like that.
All right, that sounds great. All right, we're going to go to a break here, and then we'll pick it right back up in just a few minutes.
Prepper's Asylum is the premier preparedness outfitter. They carry in stock and ship direct the products you're looking for. MREs, freeze-dried food, Kelly kettles, water filtrates, first aid and trauma kits, stoves, personal protection, self-defense supplies, and more. Prepper's Asylum are people just like you and I. Find what you're looking for and use promo code PBN at checkout to receive 10% off. That's promo code PBN for 10% off at preppersasylum.com.
We have exciting news. You can now afford to have your own freeze dryer. That's right, for the first time ever, it's possible to have a freeze dryer in your home. It was invented right here in America by Harvest Right. With this new appliance, you can freeze dry your own food and it will last 25 years. Imagine freeze-drying fruit, vegetables, meat, and your own homemade meals. It's as easy to use as a microwave. Learn more about this amazing home freeze dryer at harvestright.com. Again, that's harvestright.com.
TheWonderMill.com, the best grain mills on the market, with the ability to mill several items that many grain mills will not. There are 2 grain mills to choose from. The Wonder Mill Electric. It's fast and gives you a vast variety of items it can grind. The Wonder Junior Hand Grain Mill can grind a wide variety of things that even some of the most expensive hand grain mills cannot, including oily grains, nuts, and seeds. Learn more about the most resourceful tool that you may ever own. See all the exciting things that Wonder Mill can do for you and what you eat at thewondermill.com.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Tom with Galtstrike, and I am talking with Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy from doomandbloom.net. And we just got done talking a little bit about how people can join the medical profession as either a doctor or maybe as a nurse, and some possibilities of how to fund that. We were just talking about also, for example, possibility of American citizens who can't afford school here, who may be bilingual, could travel to another country and live in another country for a while, get their degree there, then come back to the States. I thought that was an interesting idea, considering that my wife is from the Philippines and she studied there, and she's seeking to become a nurse here in the United States. So thank you for being on the show, Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy. We'd like to move forward a little bit. Oh, I do have one question that was asked in the chat room. One of our guests asked about becoming an EMT or a paramedic. Could you share what you guys know about those career fields?
Oh, I have to tell you that if you really want to have a sense of accomplishment and you really want to help people, I mean directly help people, then I think going into the emergency medicine, emergency medical services field, I think is an awesome idea. An EMT basic course takes a few months. It can take up to a couple of years depending on how intensive you do it. It's about 150 hours worth of coursework, and there are so many tech institutes around, community colleges that have these programs. Almost every good-sized municipality would have it, and you know what? You are really going to save lives if you go into this field. So if you can't make the time commitment all these years that you need to study to be a nurse or a physician, but you still want to be in the medical field, I can't think of a better way to do it than becoming an EMT, becoming a paramedic. And there are, of course, all sorts of different levels of emergency medical services personnel, and you can just progress through them as you need to. But I think it's an awesome field, and I strongly encourage anyone that's considering it to indeed take that course.
So would that be a good career and classes to take in a good career to get into to become a EMT or paramedic, maybe to help fund their college to become a nurse? Could they be doing that kind of work on the side while they're going to school?
Well, the paramedic is a little more intense. I would say EMT would be a good way to start and to work on the side to then go to medical school, because the paramedics are actually pretty highly trained. And again, they're specifically doing a paramedic program. I'm not sure exactly how the courses cross over between nursing and paramedics, but to become a paramedic, you can get an associate degree to become a paramedic. You can also advance your career and end up with a 4-year bachelor's degree. I just am not 100% sure how separate the nursing courses are versus the paramedic courses. So I would say that the EMT basic would be a great thing to do. They make good money. I was just looking up what some of them.
Well, yeah, that's what I was wondering, the amount of money they make. Does that pay well enough to help someone fund their nursing education?
Well, it depends on their expenses, I guess, just like everything else in life. But I'll tell you that we have people that follow our website, follow our podcasts and videos and things like that that have gone through the emergency medical services route and are now nurses, for example. And they're quite, even in the Wilderness Medical Society, of which I'm a member, we have people that have been paramedics and are now doctors. So you can take your education as far as you want to take it. It's just, sometimes life gets in the way, though, and you have to decide to either continue your education or, move on and make money.
Yeah. So now let's move on to talk about your website and your book, the Survival Medicine Handbook. Which one do you want to start with first, the website or the handbook?
Well, I can tell you that our website is doomandbloom.net and that we now have 850 articles, podcasts, videos on the website, all of it relating to disaster and epidemic medical preparedness.
Or gardening. Some of my older ones are gardening. If you really
we have some that are 4 or 5 years old that are gardening.
Into the history. I've got a lot of gardening articles.
We're master gardeners for the state of Florida, and so we believe that is part of it too. Amy, as a matter of fact, has one of the largest medicinal gardens in the state of Florida. She's a super gardener, really has a green thumb. But our website is different from your average first aid website in that what we write about assumes that medical care is not immediately at hand. In other words, that you, the average person, might just be the end of the line for a period of time or for good when it comes to your family's well-being. And so from our standpoint, we write as if you are the guy and that you don't have the ability to just transfer that person to the nearest hospital. And so that's what makes us different. Our book is called the Survival Medicine Handbook, the essential guide for when medical help is not on the way. It's now in its 3rd edition. It's 700 pages. I think it's a great addition to your survival library, and everything is written in the same mindset as in the website. Nowhere between the front cover and the back cover does it ever say go to the hospital or go to the doctor, because the whole book assumes they don't exist anymore. And so what we're trying to do is get people through disasters. It could be short-term disasters, but the bottom line is that the hospital is not an option, and we are there to make people effective in their role as medic in times of trouble. And so we've been very blessed to have really the support of the entire preparedness community. We've really had we've had a lot of book sales of the first, second, and now the 3rd edition. The 3rd edition, I just want to say, if you're looking at it, I think the 2nd edition is still on Amazon. The 3rd edition has a red medical kit with a white cross on it. Just so you know, I think the other one has a red cross on it, and then we realized that, I think the Red Cross is
it's perfectly fine, honey.
It's owned by the Red Cross.
No, it's not.
So, since we're on the topic of the book, we got a question. From the chat room, what would be the top 10 things to learn how to treat for a non-medical people? So people like what this book is written to.
Sure.
What would be the top 10 things they should learn how to treat?
Well, I think number 1 is you need to know how to treat water so that it's safe to drink. The bottom line is that most of the deaths that you're going to see, the avoidable deaths, are because you did not pay enough attention to sterilizing questionable water. So we have entire chapters on water sterilization and how to sterilize instruments and how to basically make sure that you're dealing with clean drinkable water, and if you start with that, then you're going to avoid a lot of infectious disease that otherwise would run rampant in your family or in your group in times of trouble. Speaking of which, infectious disease and learning how to recognize and treat infectious disease is also very important. Things like an infected wound. So like an infected wound would look red, it would be swollen, sort of shiny. It has a tendency to be very warm to the touch compared to other areas. The redness tends to spread. So that's some of the things that you would learn with regards to how to identify an infection. We do that not just for an infection of the skin or the soft tissues, but we talk about all sorts of infections, abdominal infections, and we talk about infections that occur in your eye or in your ear. So we talk about really 150 different topics in the book. Also, how to deal with animal bites, insect bites, snake bites. That's something that's important. You need to know how to deal with those issues. So I think that's very important. Learning how to recognize allergic reactions, asthmatic reactions, things like that, and respiratory problems as well. So we talk about those issues. One of the big things, though, is you need to know how to deal with hemorrhage. Hopefully there are not going to be a lot of gunfights at the OK Corral, but they can happen, or accidents can happen. Even if you live in a remote homestead, because this book is a good book for homesteaders as well. If that's the case, then you need to, if there's an accident, you need to know how to stop bleeding. And so we go through a whole big thing with that. Then one of the newest things in our book is how to deal with terror events, active shooter situations. And so we talk about how to work with tourniquets, how to work with blood clotting powders and things like that. So that, I think, is very, very important, especially in today's times. Then we need to talk about orthopedic injuries. There are going to be a lot of sprains and strains. There are going to be broken bones, things like that. So we talk about everything from soup to nuts with regards to that. We tell you how to deal with sprains. We tell you how to deal with a broken bone. Tell you how to deal with dislocations. We tell you how to deal with even a collapsed lung from a rib fracture, let's say. So, this is very important. You need to know how to deal with trauma to muscles and to bones. And so those are very important things. You may find this unusual, but you need to know how to deal with dental problems as well. Now, I know that, a few days without power because of a storm, obviously you're not going to need to have any dental supplies or dental equipment or probably any major dental knowledge. But in a long-term event, if you believe that some long-term event might possibly occur, they'll take you off the grid for a significant amount of time, then you're going to start having people with dental issues. During Vietnam, 50% of the sick call patients were for dental issues, not for medical. And so this is something that's very important. We have an entire section that tells you how to deal with everything from a loose tooth to a broken tooth to cavities to
pulling a tooth.
and we even discussed dental extraction.
Yeah.
So we in 90% of medical emergencies can be dealt with by extraction. That's the way it was in the old days, and that's the way it might be if you find yourself off the grid for a good long time. So that's going to be something important too. Also, you might have to deal with a pregnancy if things go bad long enough. Then you need to know how to take care of a pregnant woman. You need to know how to deliver a baby. We talk about that in major detail in our book. These are some things that are really important.
I would say another thing would be not only how to check for infections, but when you get an injury, and we've already talked about stopping the bleeding, but learning how to properly clean the wound. We talk about a lot in our articles over the years about how dirty the infections are going to be in a survival situation. You think about the tools that we might get hurt with might have been used for butchering or chopping wood or things that are not necessarily the cleanest procedures prior to injuring yourself. So a lot of these wounds are going to have to be cleaned out really, really well. We teach you how to do that. And you're also going to learn how to treat them and care for them being open. You're not going to be able to close them up with stitches or staples because you're going to create an environment that bacteria will just be so happy in that you'll end up with a horrible infection. So, you're going to have to learn how to take care of wounds that are left open.
Also, it's very important to realize that you're going to be in a true survival setting. You're going to be outside a lot. And if you are not prepared for the climate and the weather, the environment becomes your enemy. And you need to know how to deal with heat exhaustion, heat stroke. A lot of the country right now is going through a major heat wave. So you need to know how to deal with people that may be experiencing heat exhaustion, heat stroke. You need to know in cold weather how to deal with people that are suffering from exposure, things like frostbite, and hypothermia. So these are very, very important things to
I'm going to add a number 11. I'm going to add sanitation. And a lot of people don't think of the medic or the medical professional or whoever's taken charge of that for a group, community, or a family. But if you don't learn how to properly dispose of your wastes that are going to come out of your body, whether you like it or not, you can cause serious illness in a family. if you're not disposing of things, if these are disposed of near where you're growing food or near your water source,
Right.
Things can become contaminated. So you really need to learn proper waste disposal.
Absolutely.
And possibly, unfortunately, deceased disposal.
Right. And in addition, it's important. Here we're telling you about all the things that you need to, all the abnormal things that you need to learn to recognize and how to treat, but you need to know what is normal as well. Our book talks about how to perform a physical exam and how to do it in a fashion so that you know what's normal and what's not, because that's the thing. If you don't practice checking things out to see what is normal, you're not going to recognize. Many times you won't recognize when things are abnormal.
So your book pretty much covers in detail most of the major medical situations that people might encounter when there is no doctor available. I've gotten several books that I've collected over the years on different topics, like the Army Survival Manual and different survival manuals. But your book covers a lot of the things that those books don't even touch on. And so for having a survival manual, I think that your book is a really good manual to cover a lot of things that other books just don't have.
Well, I think in the third edition that we have, we really do listen to people. And I think people who have met us in person or people who have corresponded with us either through Facebook or through emails or on phone calls understand that we truly are here with a mission to put a medically prepared person in every family. And we really believe that deep down in our soul. And so through the years, writing and creating the first book, and then writing and creating the second book, and then writing 3 more years and creating the third book, not only did we get feedback from our articles, but some of those articles were generated because of people saying, hey, could you talk about this? Could you talk about that? Oh, I haven't seen anybody mention this. And so if you really look at our book, it is not Dr. Alton and Amy Alton just writing that book. This really is a book that represents the survival community and their needs and us responding to what people have asked for.
And the most important thing about the book is that it's all written in plain English. I mean, if there's a medical term that I have to use, I tell you exactly what it means, right then and there, so there's no doubt as to what we're talking about. And so it's a very easily understandable book, and it's a book that the average person, the average 13-year-old could read,
right,
and be able to. And
we do have teenagers that are interested in it, and it's so cool when young folks. I mean, in Texas, we had an 11-year-old who was a little shy. Her dad came up and was talking, and he's like, my daughter really wants to say hi to you guys. And I'm thinking, a child, like they really care. And I'm thinking the parents just pushing this on the poor girl. And, she shakes our hands and she's all nervous. And the dad says she doesn't want to say it, but she wants to grow up and be a doctor because of you guys. And I wanted to cry. He's like, she got a hold of the book. She started reading it. She can read it. She understood it. And now she wants to be a doctor. And I was like, I'm a mom of daughters, of course. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. But, you never know who you're touching, who you might help. I mean, even if nobody uses this book now, maybe in 50 years something might awful happen when most of us are gone who are even here talking. And the book still exists in some homes that have been transferred in libraries to grandchildren. Maybe it'll help somebody then. We don't wish tragedy on anybody, but stuff happens.
And I want to mention
real quick. We've only got just a few minutes left, and I want to get enough time for you guys to talk a little bit about your board game.
Okay.
And maybe explain we only got like 3 or 4 minutes left.
Okay.
And maybe explain real quick some tips on how people that are interested in writing a book, how they might go about doing that, and same thing with your board game, some tips on how people can get started with Kickstarter.
All right, yeah. Well, our board, we decided because there were a lot of preppers that couldn't get the rest of the family on the same page with them, we wanted to give them a way that they can get people in the survival mindset in their family without having it sound like a lecture or having it crammed down their throats. So we put together a board game in which you wind up making survival decisions throughout the game. And it's a fun game. You're exploring places. You're making decisions. You're accumulating assets. You're using up assets. And the game is called Doom and Bloom Survival. The game comes with as a Kickstarter reward miniatures. So we give that to everybody who orders a game now because we have some extra. And so the game is called Doom and Bloom Survival. It's an awesome game. You can find it at survivalboardgame.com or on our website at doomandbloom.net. With regards to Kickstarter, the bottom line is, number one, have a good product and have rewards that really encourage people to get you to your goals and to reward goals as well. And for us, we spent a lot of money to put together miniatures for people that would be, and instead of putting that way at the end as like, $1 zillion, once we reach $1 zillion, you get miniatures. We made it the absolute first thing, something really good right at the very first reward goal. And so that, I think, is very important. And also, you have to have lots of great images on your Kickstarter page and let people know what your product is. Let them know why they need it. And so in this case, it was to really help those people in the preparedness community that were having trouble with the rest of the family getting on board, and that's important. What was the other thing I was supposed to talk about?
Well,
how you got started? How we did the Kickstarter? How you got
writing a book?
Oh, writing a book.
Yeah,
okay.
Everybody has a book in them. I feel this from the bottom of my heart. Everybody has a book in them, and everybody has special knowledge, things that only they know from their life experience and
their passion, what they love.
Right. And there's something that you love. If you love horses and you have horses, write about horses. If you love gardening and you garden, write about gardening. We write about medicine, but we write about medicine in our own mindset and something that we're passionate about.
Yes.
We're feverishly, by the end of my life, I'm going to have some medics. Some people that are right now, they're held in reserve. But one day, they may have to be the end of the line with regards to whether somebody...
We got less than a minute left. Real quick, Could you tell people how they can reach you guys? Because we do got a few questions in the chat room that we didn't get to. So how can they reach you guys, email you guys, and give your website real quick?
Okay, our website is doomandbloom.net. I have a store. I put together custom medical kits that I design. Entire line. Store.doomandbloom.net. Facebook can be Joe Alden, MD. Also, we have a Survival Medicine group. Facebook group. Find that one. It's awesome. We have a YouTube. Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy. I have hundreds of videos.
And our podcast, the Survival Medicine Hour, on this network.
Yes.
I gotta go.
Okay, bye.
Tell me we're going out. Talk to you later, guys.
All right.
Bankland, Federation of Bankland, the Republic of Bankland, United States of Bankland.
Today's broadcast has come to you through the courtesy of the Prepper Broadcasting Network. See our hosts, show schedules, archived programs, and more at prepperbroadcasting.com. Thanks for listening.